Welcome everyone to Synthesis. It's lovely to see you. We're happy that you've joined us today. I'm Emily Sicorsi.
I'm Justin Foster.
And Synthesis, if you know, if you've joined us before, you know that this is a Root and River hosted webcast that brings together nonconformist leaders whose ideas make them and us see the world very differently. This is our 4th episode, and we're really grateful that you've joined us again. We're thrilled to welcome our guest because she is a person who has inspired both of us and been an advocate for both of us. And we've had the pleasure of working with her in multiple capacities over the last several years. And so our guest today is Kristi Hall. Kristi believes you are here to create magic in the world. She's the founder of Conscious Connections, a group of enlightened, business-savvy women who gather to have the meaningful conversations they've been told that they're not supposed to have. So those conversations are about life, they're about relationships, and they're about business as well. Kristi's filled with spunk and spirit, and she herself is a testament to the idea that conscious self-discovery and business inform one another in a lot of different and very meaningful ways. She began her career in the corporate atmosphere. She's built her success, traveled the world, worked for some of the biggest brands in business and media. But after serving in the Arizona business and nonprofit communities for nearly 2 decades, she began to tussle with her own higher purpose. One day, Kristi had an awakening and uncovered her personal right work path, which was different. And she also uncovered an unrelenting thirst to serve others so they could discover and do their own right work. Now her tribe of women, who number in the thousands and span the Western U.S., come to her as a connector, a speaker, a writer, and a community gatherer. She is primarily concerned with the building of connections and the opportunity to do our best work. Welcome, Kristi.
Wow, thank you. I would like to wake up to an introduction like that every morning. Good for my self-esteem.
We can make that happen, no problem.
That sounds awesome.
You know, we are recording this, so you can always.
Yes.
I'll just put it on my phone and play it every morning.
Right, it could be your alarm, alarm audio. I renamed my morning alarm, my 6 a.m. alarm, from a Willie Nelson song from his latest album called God's Problem Child. And the name of the song is I Woke Up Not Dead Again Today.
Oh, I love Willie Nelson.
Me too, my spirit animal. So Kristi, Root and River and Conscious Connections have a very interesting merging of historical paths in that one of your events was the debut of Root and River. The very first time we ever went out in public as Root and River, the very first time we talked about this set of beliefs that we have about how branding should be done. All of that was because you were generous in giving us the stage at that particular event. It seems like 10 years ago, but I think it was 2 years ago.
Yeah, I think it was January a few years ago, about 2 years ago.
I think it was January 2016, as I recall.
Mm-hmm. And I loved it because I am looking for experts and soulful leaders who are turning things on their side and looking at business from a different perspective. And so what a great marriage it was.
Yeah, exactly. And it continues. You've seen our evolution and growth and maturity as a brand. We've seen yours. We've shared successes together. We've cried together, and you are a treasure to us. So
yes.
Each one of these synthesis episodes is like it's like its own little child, where you love it for what it is, but you love the collective of all of them. And so we're grateful to have you on.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Well, we always like to go back to the beginning, which won't be a surprise to you. We do like to start at the root. Mm-hmm. So in knowing you over the last several years, I know that you're a person who has these really neat memories. They seem to, like the way that you've shared your memories with me in the past, I have visuals of them. So I want to start there, and I want to ask, what is your most lasting memory of childhood?
Well, I have so many, but the most positive one would be out in the Gulf of Mexico on a boat with my dad. I grew up in Houston, and that's about an hour from Galveston in the Gulf of Mexico. And my dad loves to fish and hunt and had a little bay house, more like a shack, more like a fishing camp, and a boat. And I would spend weekends and summers out cruising around the Gulf of Mexico under the sun, floating in the water. And it was so soothing and it felt free. And to this day, I am such a beach girl. Like, the water just calms and soothes me. So it was a time when life felt free and open and optimistic.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And talk a little bit about your family background too. You mentioned you're from Houston, but
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it was really interesting, the ideas that we have about ourselves and how to be, and how generationally and culturally we're affected. Grew up in Houston, which was considered the big city in Texas. But my mom was from a very small town in East Texas. And her experience of it was like growing up in a fishbowl. And she felt very strongly, I don't know that she really verbalized it to me, but we were very close, and I think I just absorbed it, that there was a lot of judgment and hypocrisy, especially through the church. People praying together on Sundays and then judging and gossiping about each other the rest of the week. And so I picked up somehow this distrust or fear of religion, judgment, and hypocrisy. And my mom escaped to the big city. She went to college, married a city boy. And this was a vast expansion for her from leaving this small town. People don't really leave. All of her brothers and sisters live within a 30-mile radius to this day.
Oh.
And so for her, it was a huge expansion. For me, I was plopped in the middle of, I won't say extreme wealth, but more wealth than we had. We were very middle class. And it seemed like everyone around me had access to bigger, better, more. And so she had expanded by leaving the small city and getting into Houston and kind of getting out of the fishbowl. I wanted to expand beyond, what I was offered through my childhood.
Mm-hmm. Do you recall, we have, and one of the things I think binds us together is that we have similar backgrounds in the sense, the three of us do, in the sense that each of us in our own way and somewhat denominationally different, we're immersed in religious ritual and a commitment to a process, for lack of a better term. I don't want to speak for Emily, but I know you and I have had these conversations, Kristi, that our background is similar in that area. So my question behind that is, when did you know that you didn't actually believe in what you were told to believe? When was your first sort of consciousness of that idea?
Gosh, I think I was really young. I was probably maybe 5 or 6 when I was in Catholic preschool. And I just had absorbed this mistrust from my mother of religion, which I thank her for, actually. I think there's a lot that I didn't indoctrinate into that I might be undoing in my adulthood if I had. But just not feeling that what I was being told was true for me, but silently resisting because I was also trained to be a good student and obey and be a good, pretty little girl. So inside I knew, and I silently resisted, but I didn't speak up about it. I wasn't vocal about it. I was a good girl.
Interesting.
So when did that start to change for you? When did you feel the rise of the voice? Was it not till later, or?
So in my 40s,
Mm-hmm.
much later.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I really spent the first good 35 years of my life at least trying to find a box I could fit into.
Mm-hmm.
It was all about performance and money and success and achievement and getting what I wanted. And I was so frustrated looking for the right box where I felt at home and I didn't feel suffocated. And sometimes I would find it for a few years, and then like the walls would start to close in on me and I couldn't take it anymore. I just physically couldn't take it anymore. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to ask, what were some of the boxes that you found yourself trying to fit into?
Mainly as an adult into, well, starting in college, what to major in. I was interested in psychology and human emotion, and all of my friends were going to law school or medical school and on that path. And so my parents encouraged me and would support me financially to get a business degree because they wanted me to have better financial prospects. And that was their idea. They actually wanted me to be an accountant.
Ah, I can't think of anything.
I'm like, do you know me? Have you met me? And then, so I didn't pursue that. Then it was always about fitting into the company that I was with and excelling in the position I was with. And I was willing to sacrifice myself and stay silent when I didn't agree in order to achieve and advance. Absolutely. It was all about that until I couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we're all three of us are Gen Xers, and I think you just described quite eloquently this almost like an illness that permeates our generation. I've jokingly said, and I'm serious about it, but I've jokingly said that Gen Xers are in our mid 40s and early 50s now, and we still have teen angst. Still in search of identity, still sort of reliving the scenes from the Breakfast Club over and over. So as it relates to that, and the theme of this podcast is around paradoxes and dichotomies, what are some of the contradictions or paradoxes that you really struggled with the most, especially in your career? As you embarked on this, like you said, this venture to carve out an identity, what are some paradoxes you bumped up against that caused you the most angst in your soul?
I think I was very clear on what didn't resonate with me. I could very easily identify, no, that's not for me. But I didn't do anything about it. I went along with it for a very long time. And because of that, I didn't realize, even though I had success and achievement and promotions and all my positions, I didn't take myself seriously because I wasn't really offering myself. I was just going along with the order of the company. And I knew what I didn't like, but I wasn't really sure what I did want and did like because I had never explored that. I had always been focused outwardly on what is the game, what are the rules I need to follow to win and advance. So I hadn't asked myself many questions or done that introspection. And because I felt like I was living two lives, I didn't take myself seriously. I hadn't developed my voice. And certainly if there were things I knew intrinsically, I wasn't using my voice. And so I just didn't take myself very seriously or give myself any value because I was really undeveloped in that way.
I think it's interesting that you use the phrase, you were living two lives. I think that's something that really resonates with a lot of the people that we work with, and just this division, this divided life.
Mm-hmm.
Parker Palmer writes quite a lot about that. So talk to me a little bit more about how you knew that. What was the evidence of living two lives, or what was that experience like for you?
The evidence is that I had achieved what I had set out to achieve in my career and with money by the time I was 30.
Mm-hmm.
I had more than I ever expected. At the time, because I didn't take myself seriously or know my value, I thought, wow, I got really lucky. I just stumbled onto all of this. Even though I had worked really hard for it and sacrificed myself for it, I wouldn't give myself credit for it, really. But I felt so unhappy, dissatisfied, trapped by my life, and unfulfilled inside. Nothing really had any meaning. I got the shiny stuff and it all looked so pretty, and I'm in PR, and so it was very shiny looking and glamorous from the outside, but I felt like crap inside, and I really didn't see the point if I didn't get the shiny prize for sacrificing myself and going along with the program. What was the answer? Like, what was next? Because my whole life had been focused on that. And it was like a big letdown. I got it, and I didn't feel the shiny prize. It wasn't what I expected.
It's interesting that awareness, which is sort of the balm of all things, the awareness that you weren't happy and you were willing to at least say that to yourself. Maybe you never had said it to anyone else, but you said it to yourself. That's that, to quote Leonard Cohen, the light, the crack that the light gets in, that little crack of awareness. And so as much as you feel comfortable sharing, I'd love to hear your moment, like the moment where you're like, I'm not doing this anymore. And was it a flash, like a big bang, or was it like a dawning? Tell us, as much as you feel comfortable, tell us about this moment where you awakened.
Yeah. It was not by choice at all. I wish I could say that I woke up one day and the birds were singing and I said, oh, I'm not going to live this way anymore. I'm going to try a new path. But it came in the form of a deep depression and a breakdown when I was 35. And I can look at it now as the universe giving me a loving little kick in the ass. But honestly, it wasn't something that I consciously orchestrated. Maybe unconsciously I did for my own good, but not consciously. And it took that breakdown and 6 months of not working and examining things. And I really got to a point where I just didn't feel like I could keep performing in a way that wasn't satisfying to me. I wasn't willing to sacrifice myself anymore. But it took something kind of dramatic, which is kind of my personality, so this is not surprising, that I would create something dramatic that was, I couldn't ignore and I couldn't suppress. For me to wake up and say, okay, let's see what else is out there. If this isn't it, what is there? And that started my study in consciousness.
I think that those times too, where you're in between the waking up and then the meaning that comes, the in-between space is so challenging to just be in, to not panic, to just hold the emotions and to just explore conceptually, emotionally, what it could mean. So did you find it to be a challenging time for you, or were you aware that you needed to have that space? How did you?
I really wasn't sure. I always say, I feel like I lived a very black and white life before my breakdown. And after the breakdown, and it was very scary and painful. I mean, I was a total workaholic, achievement oriented. My whole identity was wrapped around it. And then I was in a psychiatrist's office off of work for 6 months. It was kind of traumatic and dramatic at the time. But I, at some point, probably 5 months in, just finally let go. And a feeling of calm and like warmth, being just wrapped in warmth and calm, all the cells in my body tingling. Like I was just wrapped in love and warmth, and I knew it was going to be okay. And I knew that it was a new beginning. I didn't know what that looked like, but I knew it gave me the hope that there was something better and that there was a different way to be and live.
So that's beautiful, beautifully said. And it's interesting about, and I would put you very much in this, with this sort of honorific title of mystic. Mystics are not awakened from the outside. You know, there's like Paul in the Bible, you know, when he was Saul, it was inside, a voice inside of him that awakened him. And Eckhart Tolle, sitting on a park bench, basically homeless, awakened to this idea of the power of now. So you had this awakening, you had this awareness, and you had this warmth. When did you start to formulate this idea that this was what was next for you, that you were going to go actually organize your life around this mission of sharing this in some form, and it was going to be your livelihood? When did that begin to dawn for you after this moment that you were talking about prior?
Let's see, probably about 7 years later.
Wow.
It did not happen quickly.
Interesting.
I took this as something for me to explore.
Yeah.
And so I began avidly studying consciousness. I spent all of my nights and weekends in spiritual and personal growth seminars and reading and asking questions. And I went back to a position, and it was at a nonprofit, which I thought might be a little bit closer, a little bit farther away from corporate, mission-based organization. And it took the contrast. I really felt like I was two Kristis then, because I had this new awareness and I was learning about empowerment and enlightenment and all of these wonderful, magical things that I had never considered before, because my spirituality was shut down at a very early age by me, by these ideas, this distrust I had kind of sensed from my mother because of her negative experiences. And so it took the contrast and the pressure of knowing this, coming to know that this was the truth, and then being in a very structured, disempowering, disillusioning work environment to really bring it to a head until it became so uncomfortable that I couldn't be quiet anymore and I had to leave. So you see a little theme here. I haven't raised my hand for most of this stuff.
Yeah.
It has, I've been forged.
Yes.
Invited.
Yes.
Invited is a better word. It's a softer word.
It's a softer word, but it may not be as accurate. I
That's
can
true,
definitely
yeah.
relate.
It felt like a forging.
Yeah.
I think, I like your word.
Yeah. So as this forging is going on, you're in this nonprofit or mission organization. Is that beginning to resonate with you, or are things like starting? Is there a new kind of model that is percolating in your mind to direct, to bring together the achiever Kristi and the conscious, aware Kristi, or did that help you in any sense?
It really helped me. Contrast is a great thing. And so sometimes having experiences or seeing things that we definitely don't agree with gives us our own clarity. So that contrast can be really important. And this actually was an educational organization and a membership-based organization. So it gave me a familiarity and a model to look to which is very helpful. And it gave me, you know, I loved the actual work. I loved the inspiration, the education, the connection. I just didn't agree with leadership. It was more about their values and the way the organization was structured internally. But I loved the work that we were putting out into the world.
I think it's really interesting because a lot of times people, they think that you're going to have this, you know, awareness moment or awakening moment, and then everything's going to snap into place and become crystal clear what they need to do, and that it's just going to kind of spiritually infuse in them. But I love your story because it's very practical. Like, all this is going on, you're in this situation, and you're learning and you're growing, and it's evolving inside of you. And so I just think that's a really good takeaway for people, that sometimes we have the awakening and we need to continue with what we're doing to find our way through it, not necessarily burn everything down the next moment.
And there's always, I mean, I think that we grow into it, and there are experiences that we need so we can gain insight and understanding and even skills, connections, whatever it is we may need for the moment when the next thing comes. And, you know, I very much love the idea of finding it. Like, this is my it. This is the thing I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And my therapist, who's very good, always reminds me there is no it.
Right.
You keep evolving. There is no it.
Right.
You continue the same values and mission, but things are going to evolve and change. And so I have to remind myself, there is no it.
I totally agree with that. That resonates with me. I've had this thought recently too, that there is no such thing as full potential. You hear that a lot. I want to meet my full potential. We're not machines. So we have no ceiling on our potential if we're growing, because, you know, every day contains within it factors that change the chemistry of potential. And I think you're right about the it. I think this is a ailment of industrial age thinking that still remains with us, this very linear approach to life, or systems thinking about life. Like, I got to go find the perfect partner and the perfect place to live. And at the same time, in the world that you came from, and mine is similar, we were taught that change is bad. So with this weird dichotomy that you're supposed to accept how everything's are, but if you try to change it, then there's something wrong with you. And then at the same time, why aren't you happy? It's such a strange contrast that people have.
And to this day, I mean, all that my parents ever wanted for me was to be stable and financially secure. That's really, like, that was their hope and dream for me. Being an entrepreneur does not fit their idea, and they're in their late 70s and 80s, of, you know, the culture and the ideas that they grew up in. And so they don't understand my need, my intrinsic, you know, seeking and exploring and always learning and growing and trying different things and branching out on my own. It's the complete opposite of what they have wanted for me. So it really freaks them out quite a bit. They try to be as supportive as they can, but they don't get it.
Yeah.
It's
so
not their paradigm.
So what was that next big moment for you? What was that moment that
a big moment was when I left my position, and I did not know what I was going to do next. I just felt like I was suffocating and just had to leave, which was just an act that I took on my own behalf. I started graduate school in organizational psychology, because I thought, well, maybe psychology, which I wanted to do in college, really is for me. And maybe this is a way I can do it, you know, in my late 30s. Did some consulting work, had some success in that, but it was closer, but it was not as free or spiritual. I still wasn't saying what I really wanted to say or what I meant. It was still within a prescribed, corporately accepted box. And there was so much more that I wanted to say. So that's when I conceived Conscious Connections, because I really wanted to move even farther away from the box.
Great. So you mentioned in there, you had this knowing and things are getting crisper. Mm-hmm. And we work a lot with our clients, as you know, around mission. So is not mission statement, but the mission of you, what you're here to do that only you can do. Was that beginning to take a different shape in the seam between, you know, your own awareness and rising consciousness and then consulting in a business world? Like, was this beginning to be the place where you knew you became more aware of a mission that was attached to that?
I don't know how aware I was of it. I knew personally for me that my study of consciousness, my spirituality had opened me up, brought me back to life, and opened me up to a whole new magical world. And I just saw people dying on the vine all around me. Especially when I was, you know, in my position, I just saw people wilting and dying and being squashed all around me. And I thought it was ridiculous. And I thought, why, if I can wake up to this, kicking and screaming, then other people can have some of this magic too. And then I just looked to what I know how to do. I'm a great connector. I know education, I know networking, I know membership models, and it just became a practical thing to put a structure around it. I still didn't have the words, as you know, because we met when Conscious Connections was about a year old. So I still didn't have the words to really describe it succinctly, but it was more of a feeling. It was moving towards that magic, but I wouldn't have even used that word then.
Very interesting. So, yeah, this is a good kind of jump off point to your current life, and we can maybe backfill, you know, some of how this happened. But your current world that you're living in, that around Conscious Connections and building this membership of people, women in particular, on a similar journey. As you look at it today, what about it most excites you?
The connection. It's those magical moments. I so look forward to when we have live events, whether it's a small mastermind circle or one of our larger evening events. It is, people actually use the word magic with me. And they say they feel refreshed, revived, that this is different. They feel inspired. They feel alive. And, you know, I would love to feel that way all the time. I haven't figured out how to do it. I don't know if as humans, that's really how it's supposed to go. But it feeds my soul. And those are the experiences that I seek to create. So it really is about the experience for people.
And that feeds you, and then that feeds each other.
But I know it feeds me because it feeds all of us.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
I can't just sit and have this. I can have this experience by myself, but it's so much more fun with other people. And I believe we're designed for that. I believe we're designed for community.
So the magic is almost in that connection or in that community, as you said. So do you think, it's funny, I think this is a really interesting dichotomy of modern life, contemporary life, is this, and as we were preparing to talk to you today, I just thought, are we living in a time of great connection or not? Like, in one way we're so connected, and the way that you're talking about bringing people together and that level of connection and magic, it feels very different to me. So I'll just throw that question out to you. Do you think we're living in a time of connection?
I feel like we're living in an age where we have the tools to be meaningly connected more than ever, but we're not necessarily using the tools to do that. I mean, we can use the internet and social media and all of those tools at our disposal to connect ideas and people all over the world. We can be on Zoom in 2 different states and have a meaningful conversation that we share with the world. Or we can post selfies of our food, which there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm just saying, it's just like television or anything. Technology is just a tool. It's how we use it. And so the opportunities to be connected are great. I think of Oprah, one of my role models, and I think of the platform that she used from TV for a daily talk show to actually raise and shift the consciousness of the world, raise awareness, have conversations that people were never having publicly, especially not on international TV before. So the possibility is there, but I think that we're shedding the facades that we've been raised with and taught, the masks that we wear. And so when we operate, inauthentic is a strong word because I don't even know if people are aware they're doing it. It's just, people are just doing what they've been trained to do to survive and be safe and be okay. You know, it takes the courage to start to shed those masks in safe groups, in supportive groups, to come out of the closet, to be yourself, to have that connection. So, you know, we can program our entire world if we only look at our own social media feeds and it's a bunch of people that we know, we're only getting one perspective.
Yes, right.
So it's powerful, but it can also be really isolating because we could be and are living in our own reality or universe,
right,
with no idea of what other perspectives or what's going on in the world.
Yes, totally agree with that. I raised my sons, who are now 19 and 25, around this concept that if you look around and everyone talks the same, looks the same, acts the same, you either are in a cult or we're working for a large corporation. And it's to embrace that being different. So playing off of that, Kristi, you're uniquely positioned with from your childhood through your corporate career to this awakening, and the fact that it was not like, woke up from the deep depression and go off and go do this. It took, that 7-year period of, that foundry to develop this in. All of that said, you are very uniquely positioned to close this very important gap in society that's right now. And there's kind of 3. It's the gap between yourself and your career, like what your mission is in your career, and then bigger than that, the gap between spiritual and business. So when those gaps are closed, what happens? What happens to someone's life? What happens to someone's business if they close those gaps?
Fulfillment, a deep sense of value, joy, satisfaction. And we can solve so many issues if we approach it this way. So many human issues.
Interesting.
So what does a meaningful connection look like?
It looks like a safe place where you can express yourself authentically and be seen and heard and appreciated, simply for your thoughts and feelings for who you are, where you can be valued for who you are and what you bring to the world.
That's good.
Beautiful. I think it's interesting too that people need that so much, but a lot of times to get it, they have to step outside of the world that they live in, even if they live within a loving ecosystem and, you know, maybe they really enjoy their work, but still there's this need to shed, as you were talking about before, all these masks and just be appreciated. But I think that that's the role, in having attended events at Conscious Connections, that's the role that organizations like yours provide. And it's scary too, to step outside and to do that, to even to make the time in our crazy crush of a life. And yet the paradox of just the deep longing for it.
Yeah. I think too, having attended a couple of your events, Kristi, it's interesting that people, there's no expectation. I think this is a powerful differentiator from your group compared to others that are in a similar, have a similar mission or intention, is that there is no expectation that you arrive maskless. That there is an expectation, I would put in my words, to remove it once you get there. Because I can imagine how obvious pretense is in an environment where everyone's taking their masks off. It would be like, and I'm not comparing consciousness to alcoholism, but would like being at an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting and still being in denial that you're an alcoholic, you know, meeting after meeting after meeting. But I think there's something profoundly beautiful about accepting people as they are, and not everyone's going to arrive maskless. In fact, it may take going to one of your events 4, 5, 6 times. Maybe what they need is that one person they end up sitting next to that they can be vulnerable with, and then they realize, hey, everyone's being vulnerable. I can do it now. Not really a question there for you, more of just an observation where we get this gift of knowing from where you came, what you've built. We've helped you brand this, and seeing some of the stories and the energy that comes out of what you're doing. I think it's awesome.
Thank you.
So I do have a question for you. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, the risk is to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And the fear that if we let people see us as we really are, that we won't be loved, accepted, or appreciated.
Yes.
That's a deep human fear.
Yes. Amen to that. Amen to that. And I think we're trained to be the person that we were told to be in order to receive that love. And then you get this condemnation from your past, from, you know, old friends or old people that you used to go to church with or whatever, where they're like, you've changed. And my response to that is, hell yeah, I changed, because I'm not dead. So you have a very specific, your business model is not all that unique. It's, you know, a community and a membership and sponsorships. That's not what makes us unique. It's a little bit like Southwest is not unique because they have a different kind of airplane. They have a different kind of experience. For you, who is looking for you? And I want to note how that's tweaked from who you're looking for, because one of our mantras of Root and River is the flower does not chase the bee. So who is looking for you? Who is looking for conscious connection? What kind of human?
Humans who are seeking to find their voice. Humans who are seeking authentic, unveiled connections. Humans who are seeking to connect more with themselves and God and each other. Their God. I need to make sure I make that clear. However they construe that.
Right. However, whatever label they.
Right. Their higher power.
Exactly.
You mentioned risk before, and I think, you know, nothing in life is free. It always requires an investment in ourselves. So what is the cost of being connected, or what should people expect? Like, let's say someone's listening and like, maybe I need to give myself time and space to step out and find a connection like this. What is that going to require of them?
Well, it requires time, one of our most precious assets. The time to invest in yourself and know that when you invest in yourself and take time out from just continuing to do the routine of what you always do, that it is going to shake things up in productive ways in the long run. It may not be apparent at first, but it will give you clarity so that you can be more directed and clear in the long run. But it does take the investment of time and then courage. I mean, it takes courage to put yourself out there. You may feel uncomfortable. So many people, when you walk into this really open, positive environment, we are so used to being guarded all the time. It can actually be very disarming to people.
Yeah.
When you're not used to it, just to be embraced that way and for people to speak their mind so openly, it can be a little disarming for some people the first time, but they quickly love it, I think, because they may not even know they've been searching for it. It feels good, but it's different than certainly showing up in a corporation for work. It's a very different feel.
Yeah, interesting. So I think we have time for maybe 2 more questions. And so I'll throw this one out to you. Is we don't often get to do this, especially in the world that you're in of blending spirituality and business and career. But as you look at where you're at today, what are you most proud of related to your own growth, your own decisions about your life? Less about conscious connections and more about Kristi. What are you most proud of today?
I am most proud of finding my voice and valuing it. And actually knowing that sharing my voice is inspiring other people to find their unique voice. That has been the most, what I have learned the most through this experience.
Beautiful.
It's been very empowering because as a young child, I did not use my voice. For 40 years, I didn't use my voice.
Right.
It feels really good to do that.
I find it interesting, just a quick comment, that many people that have had so much suppression of voice, when they finally find it, they come across as condescending or arrogant. And I think it's beautiful that as you found your voice, you have a humility about it. And that's a very, very rare thing that in a society where finding your voice has become kind of a cliche, which is basically just trying to give yourself permission to maybe be a little bit more mean. And you went the other way. You've used your voice to talk about love and acceptance and optimism and positivity, and I think that should be acknowledged. So
thank you.
So Kristi, the definition that we use of synthesis is diverse realities or contradictions that come together to inform a higher level of truth. So what's one truth in your life that has guided you? Maybe something you learned in business, maybe it's something you learned in childhood or along the way. So what's one truth that has been a lasting guide for you?
A lasting guide. I feel like I've tried on many truths in life to kick the tires and see if they worked for me. This might sound really cliche, but it really is listening to your own intuition. You are your only guide. And when you don't take the time to listen to yourself, I have learned from experience that you will not be fulfilled or satisfied in the long run. You can keep ignoring the voice, but you have a deep knowing, the sooner you listen to it and follow it, that is a quicker path to happiness and fulfillment than trying to ignore, suppress, and fight it.
Yeah.
In my experience, you know, Oprah says, like, first you get a pebble, then you get, you know, a tap, then you get like a brick wall. In my experience, you know, I've run into several large brick walls by not listening to myself. And so for the second half of my life, I am willing to listen sooner, to ask more, to listen sooner, and to the best of my ability, let go of control so I can be in the flow of what is to be, even with conscious connections, like what form it may morph into.
Yeah.
I was very set on a formula and a picture and a plan in the beginning. And now I'm asking it more like, what form do you want to take? How is this going to reach more people? It doesn't have to look anything like it did in the beginning anymore.
Yeah,
I'm just
beautiful.
open to that. Don't know what it is yet, but I'm willing to just let it come.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
I love that. I love the idea of listen sooner. That's a great takeaway.
It is. A great place to stop because that's some profundity right there that probably can't be topped in the time we have left. We'll put links to how to find you in when we post this on our website. And just would say I would encourage anyone because there's an emphasis on women leaders, but all genders are welcome, right?
Absolutely.
To check out if you're in the Phoenix area, to go to one of Kristi's events. And if you, and I would even challenge you this: if you feel it here and you feel it in your heart, and you, especially if you live in a cold state and want to go someplace warm, just get down there and maybe make it part of a trip. There's something, you know, mystical about being in the desert, especially when you're coming out of the, you know, the cold of the north. Or in Austin right now, it's 23 degrees. So maybe I need to get to Phoenix. But so thank you very much for being so open and so interesting to talk to and having the time fly by. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kristi.
Talk to you again.
Bye.